Hello and welcome back to this Downful Idealistic Crusade. Today I'm going to talk about the second of the Avon Phantom novels in the Hermes Press reprint series, as of course the Slave Market of Mucar. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But this is a wonderful two-fisted adventure story based on the same story arc from the Phantom newspaper strips. And this, while it is credited as Lee Falk's original story, most of the other Avon books, he apparently wrote at least one or two of them, like the first volume, which retells the origin of the Phantom. But this one, like the book 3, was actually written by Basil Copper. So you can definitely tell there's a different writer on board than the series creator and primary writer, but that doesn't detract from it still being a wonderful Phantom adventure. And of course, it is again based on a story from the original strips. I haven't actually read the original version from the comic strip because I've only read certain bits of various other of the strips, but this was still a wonderful adventure. And of course, if this wonderfully pulpy cover does not sell you, I don't know what else will. I especially like the touch of how the Phantom's eyes appear almost sort of as blazing orange red as the background. But as I talked about in my video on the first book, the covers are very much of their era of the 1970s when Avon came out with these. So they are hyping up every pulptacular element they can. So we have fisticuffs right on the front cover. We have beautiful women, wonderfully drawn and provocative poses. So there's a lot of sex and violence promised on the cover, which is designed to attract any potential audience member, because these were done at sort of the point where the men's adventure paperback had really started to take off. So again, I only have one of the original printings for comparison. So this is one of the original Avon books. And as you can see, the reprint is much larger, and it is designed to give it a much more premium feel and appearance. So while these are list price at $14.99, they do have a nice sort of almost textured premium feel to it when you actually get it and you have it in your hands and you're reading it. So it's not just a sort of slapdash reprint of the Avon books, which are long out of print and very much not super expensive, but you would pay a decent price for them on the used market because they are nice little collectibles. So that is something I actually really do like about these. I wondered at first why they opted to make a bigger reprint. So these are, again, they're obviously larger than the original paperback, and it's not the full sort of size of a graphic novel in terms of a trade paperback. So it's sort of like an in-between, but it just feels really nice in the hand, and I really like what they did with these. They also take an element of the front cover and use it for the rear, and they give it a sort of uniform design with all the others in the series. So all of them do this, and then they have these nice, simple, white matching spines. They also have replicated the numbering on the front with the classic skull logo, which of course you see on the Phantom's iconic ring there on the cover. Now, again, as I said before, this is based on a story arc from the newspaper strips, and it is not written by Lee Falk. So while Basil Copper was a well-known and respected author in his own right, and this is essentially being ghost-written under pseudonyms, as all the other books were that Falk did not write of these 15 books, you can tell there is a different writer. It doesn't have quite the same spark and, for lack of a better term, the same sort of twinkle in the eye isn't as fully there as you get in book 1 that retold the Phantom's origin. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just you can tell there's a different writer on board, essentially. And this is much more of a straightforward, two-fisted adventure. It deals with a corrupt prison warden and a far-off city that is actually doing illegal slave trading. And the Phantom basically becomes involved and breaks open the entire case with, essentially his bare hands. And there's a lot of fun sort of a back and forth manipulation of of various scenarios, and the Phantom has to use his wits and think on his feet very quickly to outwit his nefarious foes and turn the tables on them, which is, basically the fun of any great Phantom story. So the background has a nice exotic flavor to it. You also get some nice dealings with the Jungle Patrol of Bengala as well, so it's sort of a Jungle Patrol story as well. It's got a lot of really interesting elements to it, and I would like to read the original newspaper strip arc. But again, especially comparing it to the first book, because that had to retell the origin and get all the fun stuff of the back history of the past Phantoms told, and nice bits of stories being told as lore. It's much leaner, because it is just telling a direct story. It's a straightforward adventure, and I guess if you really looked at it closely, you could probably tell that it is based on the pre-existing strip source. So my guess is they fleshed out a few bits of business here and there, and it is a very quick read, because it is much more of just a straight-through solid adventure. I just wish it would be hard to argue against this for any particular series, but when you have the creator writing one book, you kind of hope and wish they could write all the other ones. So that's not to say that this book is not as good. It's just it's hard to compare when the creator writes the first book. So I had a lot of fun with this, but it is much more of a straightforward adventure start to finish, and I do really enjoy the set pieces in it, and I will be enjoying coming back to these because I've had a great love of the character since first encountering the Ghost Who Walks as a child, and then growing up being deprived of more Phantom adventures as a kid, because all we had pretty much was the 96 film and then the 2040 series, which was wonderful, and then that was kind of it until discovering all the various comics and the specialty publishers and the Hermes Press reprints. So it's really wonderful getting to read these and want these lovely reprints that have this nice matching design and lovely reproduction of the George Wilson artwork on them. And it is a significant savings over trying to get all of them in vintage editions, actually, because if you were to buy the original Avon books, they are a little bit collectible, and to try and get a whole set, you're going to be spending quite a bit. Just looking at them on eBay and trying to find them in used bookshops did not really work, because they usually go for quite a bit if you're trying to get all 15 books. So I do really heartily recommend these to all Phantom fans or all people who might be interested in the character. I really like getting to see expanded adventures for any sort of comic hero. It's rare that even the big names get actual books devoted to an entire story. It's usually just novelizations of the film adaptations or novels based on bigger comic arcs. So it's sort of a rare thing, and I really enjoy it when it does happen. So to find that the Phantom had not just one but a whole series of these Avon books, I had to read them at some point. They've been on my wish list for ages. So I was very happy to pick up the Hermes Press reprints, and you can purchase these directly on their website, which I'll have in the description below. I do wholeheartedly recommend them. The quality is really excellent on them. The text and the printing is really nice, and they do have a nice sort of premium feel to them because they're larger. And they're not too terribly expensive either, and they usually have a lot of site sales as well. So I do really recommend them if you're interested in these, because it's a lot easier getting these than the original Avon printings and trying to piece together a whole set. So I hope this has been at least somewhat fun and informative. I really enjoy these as I'm reading along, and I decided to at least make a few videos about all the various Avon Phantom books, because I've been wanting to do at least some videos based on the Ghost Who Walks, who I've been a giant fan of ever since I was a kid, and I rarely get the chance to talk about the Phantom, because unfortunately here in the U.S. it's much more of a niche character, where as compared to other countries throughout the world where the Phantom is still read and enjoyed and has new stories published every single year. So if you're interested in the character of the Phantom or of these novels, I strongly suggest at least trying out a few. They're all of so much much fun, and this was a really wonderful, straightforward, two-fisted adventure, which is something I really needed, actually. I hadn't had a good a new to me adventure novel in quite some time. So, as always, I hope this has been at least somewhat fun and informative, and thank you ever so much for watching.